Hello, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Weird Mythic Podcast. Thanks again. Always so many thanks. I know I'm just a very grateful person. Well, I hope that everyone listened to my last episode about Shanquella Robinson. I know I've been super behind on posting things on all my social media platforms. Even this episode is coming out at least a day or two late. I've just, shit happens and sometimes people procrastinate, and that's kind of what I did this last week. But this will be out by Tuesday, which is the 29th. So this episode should come out on Tuesday. But again, I really do hope everybody listened to the last episode. It was a true crime episode on Shanquella Robinson. She was murdered in Mexico by Americans, and there has been no charges, even though Mexico has sent like an extradition thing to the US for those who were involved in the murder of Shanquella Robinson. Her family still has no justice for the murder, and any updates that I learn, I will 100% share on here with all of you beautiful people. But if anybody out there has any updates for me, go ahead and send them my way to weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com or put something on one of my social medias, just so then we're all updated on what's going on with the Shanquella Robinson case. With that said, I hope that everybody has had a good day and a good week. It's been fairly chill over here with me. Been super busy at work, which is a very, very nice change. I loved my last job, by the way, mainly because the people there are just the shit. Like, I love all of them. Managers, my coworkers. It was just a really great place to work and meet people, and just being in part of a big like corporation like that with really chill, down to earth people was so fucking cool. But I am now making a little bit more money, which woo, but with this new job, not only are the people just as nice and very cool, very small company though, but I am just very busy, and I am the type of person who enjoys doing work. And this job is just cool. I stay busy, and that makes my day go fast. I love to do things and just keep my mind occupied. And this job definitely does that for me. And everybody should always try and find joy in the work that you do. Find something that'll make you proud of yourself and, of where you're working at. If you aren't happy with that, just go ahead and broaden your horizons and look for something else. But I do hope that everybody finds some sort of happiness, joy, or comfort in the work that they do from day to day. Nobody really wants to work for anyone but themselves, but a lot of us are not in the position to do that. So I hope everybody does find a good place to work where you can enjoy yourself, those around you, and the work that you do. Before we get into this week's Cryptid episode, I wanted to let everyone know about my next series that I'll be doing. And, I've done giants, I've done fairies, mermaids, but I'm really wanting to cover dragons. I have been on a huge Game of Thrones kick for the last couple of months. I've been reading or listening to the audiobooks, and I was watching an Ancient Aliens episode a couple days ago. I usually just kind of have Ancient Aliens on in the background while I'm doing stuff like laundry or dishes or whatever. But I heard something in this episode about dragons, and I just thought it was really cool. And I wanted to go ahead and say, you know what? I could actually do a whole series on dragons. And what I want to do is cover every continent and the dragons that they believe in or have folklore about. What's really cool is that all the languages around the world have a similar word to the word dragon. And that's what I believe caught my interest on the Ancient Aliens episode and the Game of Thrones. If that's probably might have been why I was like, dragons, dragons, dragons. But anyways, we'll discuss that later. But I did want to go ahead and let everybody know that my next series is going to be on dragons. And I'm super excited to see all the dragons that are, out there in the world. So we'll get into that soon. This week, however, I am talking about two different water cryptids, aquatic cryptids, if you will. I started a look into Alaska and came across a mythical creature known by the Inuits as, now, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this correctly, but Qalupalik. Qalupalik. That's Qalupalik. 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 So, Inuit's Qalupalik lives along the shorelines and beaches of the ocean, which in this case is either the Pacific or the Arctic Oceans. I'm guessing it's the Pacific Ocean, and oh my God, that's hella cold. I swam on the Pacific, in the Pacific on my coast, and it is never warm. So I can't imagine the further north you get, especially into Alaska, how cold it's going to be. So they like to hunt on the shoreline, but they also like to be on top or underneath the ice, where, if it's under the ice, they can still swim around, or they're just legit chilling on top of the ice. The Qalupalik are humanoid. They have green, slimy skin, and in some articles, they describe her skin as sallow, which is just bad. Nobody wants that type of skin. Their hair is long and resembles seaweed that sticks to them. The Qalupalik have long fingernails, more like claws, with webbed hands. Their feet are also webbed. Their eyes are hollow and they never blink. The Qalupalik also has the smell of sulfur when they are around. My favorite characteristic about the Qalupalik is that they have fins that come out of their heads, backs, and arms, and in some stories, their torso. I did read in one of the articles that one of the flippers, which, the fins flippers, is used for poisoning their victims, and the other is to help them shapeshift. And I'll give more detail on that later, don't worry. You might hear me call the Qalupalik she or her, but that is because most of them are known to be female, or at least the ones that have been seen are known to be female. They sort of sound like a mermaid, but with green skin, right? Nah. No. They are not known to be beautiful or pretty. The Qalupalik are known to be more haggish looking, and in some of the depictions that I saw, show her more like a wraith, very frail looking, but menacing and frightening. What they do have in common with mermaids, or sirens pretty much, is that they hum instead of sing. The Qalupalik are always wearing an amoti. Oh man, I hope I pronounced that right. I am so sorry for this mispronunciations. But the amauti, which is Amauti, it is that parka type that is worn by Inuit women to carry babies on their back. It has like a sack on the back of the parka that you could just kind of snug the baby into, and they're all good to go, going on, the mama's back, going wherever she needs to go. And why does the Qalupalik wear this, you ask? Why would a sea creature wear an amauti? Well, of course it's to kidnap children, duh. The Qalupalik will hum that beautiful melody. Some have described it as ethereal or hypnotizing hum. At first, not believing it to be real, but the hum does draw you into the ocean. Now, the humming isn't really meant for just anyone, really. She is trying to lure any misbehaving children into the water. The kids who are not listening to their parents or their elders. The kids who are told, hey, don't get too close to the ocean. Yet they still go right to the ocean without telling their parents. Well, if a child is hearing this humming and continues to walk toward it, the Qalupalik will attack and kidnap the child. She then uses her claws to drag the child under the freezing water. They will also put this child or multiple children into the amauti. What happens once the Qalupalik takes the child and does this? The Inuit have two scenarios about what happens to the children once they are kidnapped by the Qalupalik. One is that the child is immediately eaten. Or two, the Qalupalik puts the child in a vegetative state, kind of like asleep, and keeps them alive, for her to slowly feed off of that child. Yeah, either way, damn, the kid gets eaten. The reason why she eats children is to keep herself immortal. As the child slowly gets weaker, the Qalupalik gains all the energy and power from that child. Another way for the Qalupalik to take children is to not underneath the ice. There are places where you have to walk across big, thick pieces of ice or something in Alaska, and I'm not sure. I'm sure other places with similar climates also, but like, big, thick pieces of ice, like ice sheets, I guess. Well, the Qalupalik will be swimming underneath those ice where the child is playing or just wandering around. She will then knock, and the child will then be curious and look to see where this knock is coming from. Once the child is near a weak spot in the ice, the Qalupalik will break the ice and then take the child. Keep in mind that if you hear a hum and you are near the beach, freaking run. Or if you hear knocking under the ice, don't pay it any attention. Get the hell out of Dodge. I'd play dumb at that point, me personally. Treat the sound as if it's like a banshee at that point, which means get the hell out. Episode 11, Banshees. If you hear that scream or that hum or that song, get the fuck out of ear range because they are on their way to get you. No one knows exactly how long the Qalupalik will keep the child alive when she takes them. I have a link in the show notes. It's like a 5-minute video with a story about a boy and a Qalupalik. The child's dad went looking for the child, and the dad hunted in the ocean for many, many days looking for the Qalupalik. Now, she knew that the dad was looking for his son. And the dad, even though growing hungry with all these days on the ocean, would totally ignore hunting and just strictly look for his son. The boy initially wasn't listening to his parents, which is why he was taken by the Qalupalik. And he was very angry with himself for misbehaving. The dad actually ends up finding the boy and finding the Qalupalik where she is hiding his son and is able to take the son back home. This is just one quick story of the Qalupalik, but it shows that you might be able to get your child back if it was once taken. If you, or well, really anybody, especially adults, see a Qalupalik, because remember, she's haggish looking and she's green, there is a way for you to find out if it really is a Qalupalik. You simply ask her to shapeshift into something like a seal or a whale. And once you do that, they will shapeshift. Then you are able to kill that animal, which is the Qalupalik. Yes. This is a way to find out if it works. Will you shapeshift on demand? Yes, case closed. So there's one way to find out if a green person is a Qalupalik or not. When a child first sees the Qalupalik, it does at first look like a woman to the child, but then it quickly shapeshifts back into its original form, which is that green slimy sea creature. I read a story about a grandma who was taking care of one of her grandchildren. And unfortunately, this grandma just couldn't take care of the child. She didn't have money to feed it and decided that she would give the child away to the Qalupalik. Now, the entire village knew that the grandma did this to the grandkid, and a lot of the villagers went out searching for the child to save it. A few days go by, and there was this couple out hunting on the ice, and they stumbled upon the child. The kid, though, was tied to a piece of seaweed, and when the couple tried to take the kid back to the village, the seaweed was pulled, and the child was then dragged away from the couple. The couple went after the kid and saw that the other end of the seaweed was attached to the Qalupalik. Now, the couple tried a few different times to get the kid away from the Qalupalik, but she just continued to pull the child underneath the waves and into the freezing water anytime the couple got close. Finally, at one point, the couple was able to hide from the Qalupalik, and then like one was hiding and the other was distracting. So the one that was hiding was able to cut the seaweed away from the child, and they booked it and got that kid back to the village, and they cared for him. Now, most tales I continued to read about the Qalupalik was that they just grabbed children and the children were eaten right away. I really enjoyed the tales of the children who were then saved from her. And I kept reading in some articles that, quote, not much is known about the Qalupalik's day-to-day life, unquote, which I would say is basically true for most cryptids and mythical creatures. But I wanted to take a note, considering I continued to read that in most places, that it is an Inuit legend. And like many native people, most, if not all their stories were passed down orally from generation to generation, which means some things maybe could have been left out or just not translated properly once being, told to somebody who is not an Inuit or anybody of a native person. Similar to the Navajo and their stories of the skinwalkers, episode 15. And out of respect, don't ask too much of Inuits or natives if they're not wanting to give you that type of information on their beloved legends and, things that they straight up believe to be real, which I do believe, okay? But for those of us that are on the outside of them, just respect that. Of course, we're not going to know the day-to-day lives of all their mythical creatures and all their gods or all their spirits. It's not for us to know. I mean, you could definitely be curious and maybe ask, just be respectful of it, is all I'm saying, okay? But the Qalupalik is one of those creatures that is not really well known, like what they do from day to day, but we do know what they're set out to do and what they want to do. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any Qalupalik stories or tales, please send them to me, especially if you have your own encounter. Send them to me at weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com. Our next cryptid that I wanted to cover, I was just doing research on the Qalupalik when I found out about a similar cryptid from Japan called the Kappa. Now, the Kappa is an ancient legend from the 1600s in Japan, and it actually went through a little bit of a rebranding in the last few decades, but I'll get into that at the end. Now, the Kappa is also known as river boy or horse puller. They look a bit reptilian, but in some legends, they sort of look like an otter or a monkey. They are either green, yellow, or might have a bluish tint to them, but they are human-like with webbed hands and feet. They also have webbing between their arms and their torso, kind of like from their elbow to their rib cage. The Kappas have scales, and they are slimy. The Kappa also have carapaces. Anyways, it's like those shells on the back of crabs, shrimps, and turtles, just like that soft shell. Kappas also have this on their back. In some depictions, they also have a beak. Now, the most important part of a Kappa's anatomy is the dip in its head. So like on top of its head, it is described as a bowl type of dip, and it holds water. Now, the water must stay in that dip while the Kappa is out of the water. If that water spills out or evaporates, that makes the Kappa very vulnerable and weak. They are about the size of a human child, but they are extremely strong. Kappas also have 3 anuses. Yeah, that's important, okay? 3 buttholes. Gotcha. The Kappas live in ponds or in the rivers of Japan. They do swim and actually smell like fish also. The Kappas have been known to be a bit clumsy out of water, and they thrive in the warm summer months. So, what do we got here? We have an amphibian, humanoid, child-sized cryptid with a dent on top of its head that holds water in order for it to stay healthy and alive. Do you guys have any guesses on why this creature was so terrifying in the 1600s in Japan? Come on. Any guesses on why this aquatic cryptid is scaring people? Well, one of its nicknames as horse puller, the Kappas would take livestock and pull them into the water to eat them. But they also go after humans. Now, they like to snatch humans by the feet as they are swimming and then eat them or drink their blood and eat them. I did read a few stories on how Kappas were also perverts and rapists. Yeah, cryptids that are pervs. And the rapist part really threw me off. But it was like in 1 or 2 articles. They were really well known for just looking up women's kimonos and then attack and eat that woman. Now, rape and murder is like the worst when it comes to any human or creature. But the reason why so many people were extremely scared of Kappas is what they took from their human victims. Kappas will attack a human to take a single organ, a mythical organ, called a Shirakodama. That's Shirikodama, Shirakodama. This is an organ that is located in our anus. This is a ball of some sort of energy and health that helps the Kappa regain energy and health. If this organ is removed, the person immediately dies and then just becomes food for the Kappa. So yeah, the Kappas want a mythical organ located inside our anuses so they can live and be healthy. Yep. Now, adult Kappas, they like to be alone and be a little solitary, but the younger ones will travel and hunt in groups. Kappas do like to befriend yokais, which are Japanese ghosts and tricksters. Pretty much any Japanese supernatural being could be a yokai. We do mention yokai in our Back in Yeko episode, which is episode 41. Yeah, plugging a bunch of my own episodes into this one. Well, there are ways to get away from the Kappa. If you catch a Kappa, you can ask it to write down, quote, "I will no longer do harm or misbehave," unquote. And then the Kappa will abide. If you are confronted by a Kappa, keep these few things in mind to keep them away. First off, apparently they love politeness. So if you see one, do a very deep bow. And the Kappa will return this welcome and bow also, which will then spill all the water out from its head. If the person who first bowed to the Kappa refills the water on its head, then the Kappa will serve that person for the rest of their lives. You can also grab the Kappa by its arm. Now, their arms seem to detach from their bodies fairly easily, kind of like the tail of a lizard. So once you grab the arm and detach it from the Kappa, that Kappa will do anything you ask to get that arm back. You could also ask the Kappa if they would like to sumo wrestle. Kappas are huge sumo fans and will be down to get on the mat with you. And if you win, then of course the Kappa will not attack or eat you. Kappas are always up for a challenge. There was a story of a farmer who promised a Kappa that it can marry his daughter in exchange to use the Kappa's land to help irrigate his farmland. The farmer's daughter, though, challenged the Kappa to submerge like hella gourds in water. Like, if you can submerge me, then yeah, we'll definitely get married. But the Kappa was unable to do this. And since the Kappa couldn't complete this, the farmer's daughter didn't have to marry the Kappa. And her dad still got to use the land for irrigation. So keep that in mind. Just outsmart it. Kappas are also not fond of iron, sesame, or ginger. If you happen to befriend a Kappa, and that is possible, they will just gladly help you with anything. But you have to ask them for help. They're not just going to go out of their way to do it. They will also start to just bring you fresh fish because you were nice and they'll help you with stuff. I also read a story of how Kappas are actually the ones who taught humans on how to reset broken bones. So, thank you for that. Kappas, although will attack and eat humans or livestock, will also eat other things. They seem to love to eat cucumbers. Yeah, offerings to Kappas are usually cucumbers or eggplants, pumpkins, or even buckwheat noodles. There's an old tradition in Old Tokyo, which is Edo, E-D-O, where someone would write the name of a loved one on a cucumber and put it in the river or the stream. This would prevent the Kappa from attacking their loved ones while traveling on the water. In other areas of the country, a person would eat a cucumber before going swimming, and this would prevent the Kappa from attacking you. Now, Kappas do have many, many names. There is the Kawapa, Kawako, Kawatero, Gowapa, Kogo, or Sitengu. I'm sure I pronounced all of those wrong, but I tried, damn it. Kappas are worshipped differently depending on the region you are in Japan. There are shrines in Amore, Japan, and Miyagi, and they are worshipped as deities, like water deities. They would have festivals around the Kappa so that the farmers could have a good harvest, They need water for a good harvest. So, of course, they're going to, worship and give offerings to the water deity, the Kappa. Now, these festivals would take place during 2 equinoxes a year. So, mainly probably when they really needed the irrigation and needed water to help with the irrigation. There is a Buddhist temple, and this temple has a whole bunch of dog statues around it, but these dogs have dips on top of their heads. This is a dedication to the Kappas, because apparently this Buddha temple was set on fire in 1818, and there was a Kappa that helped put out the fires. So they kind of dedicated these dogs, into their temple as tribute to the Kappas. There's another Buddhist temple in Asakusa, where there is a mummified arm of the Kappa. And this mummified arm has actually been in the temple since the 1800s. As I had said earlier, that the Kappas had a bit of a rebranding that was done in the 1950s. In today's world, Kappas are more of a cartoon character. I saw so many old paintings and illustrations from the 16 and 1800s of Kappas legit taking balls of light out of people's butts for that organ for them to eat. But that is no longer the case in today's world. Kappas are seen in all sort of forms of media, like so many different forms. So Kappas, as I said, had a bit of a rebranding back in the 1950s. And in today's world, they're more of a cartoon character. And I saw so many old paintings and illustrations from like the 1600s and 1800s of Kappas legit taking like this ball of light out of people's butts, that organ we talked about earlier that they want. But yeah, that is definitely not the case today. And Kappas are seen in many, many forms of media now. So I'm going to talk about a few of those. Do you guys know the anime Inuyasha? Because I know I do. Hey, there are many yokai in Inuyasha, but they also mention Kappas. And Kagome's grandpa in that movie actually gets her a mummified Kappa foot on her 15th birthday. Now, there are many other animes that show mummified Kappa body parts as gifts, and I'm not quite sure why. I'm guessing it has to be some sort of good luck if you're somebody traveling on water. There's also the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the movie. The turtles, I guess, go back to Edo, Japan, and they're in the 1600s, and the people there keep calling them Kappas. There's also a snack called Kappa Ebisin. It's a Japanese snack, like a puff chip, and I think they're shrimp flavored, and I really, really want to try them because I love Japanese snacky foods, and I'm gonna have to find that. Yeah, they're definitely a shrimp flavor, but they're called Kappas, and they have like a little Kappa cartoon on their bag of chips. There is a movie called Summer Days with Ku, which is about a boy who befriends a Kappa named Ku, and it becomes part of his family. And then when people start to notice that there's a Kappa in their town, they kind of freak out. So the rest of the movie is just about how to keep this last Kappa alive. There's also a book called Kappa, and this was written by a man in 1927, Ryun Suke. A scaly, child-sized creature looking like a frog, but with a sharp beak with an oval dip in its head. In this book, it's narrated by a person named Patient Number 23, who is in an asylum and talks about hiking and then sees a Kappa. He then chases it and falls down a hole into the world of Kappas. He is then sort of treated like a pet while he is in the Kappa world. And when the child, Patient Number 23, decides to go back to his own world, he hates it and hates how people treat each other and ends up going to a mental institution, when all he wants to do is go back to the Kappa world. There is a monster movie called Death Kappa that came out in 2010, and it's about military experiments that ended up creating the Kappa. Now, are all the stories of Kappas, Qalupaliks, just here to warn children to just not get close to the water? We have drownings, we have sharks, we have whales, we even have seals that can attack children. And sadly, how many times has a child gotten just way too close to the water and has never been seen again? I've seen so many docuseries about people trying to find sea and water monsters. all over the world, they have these stories of these humanoid creatures attacking people. And I believe that they must have been real at some point in time. Maybe not so much now, but I do believe that these elaborate stories that seem to kind of match up in all different areas of our planet, they aren't make-believe. I do believe that these creatures must have been somewhere. And I'm 100% sure, 100% sure that Kappas and Qalupalik legends are something to be real. Just why not? I'm not going to consider them a mermaid or a siren just for the fact of it's a little bit different when they only stick to the shores or they're only in the rivers. And they do seem to have some sort of, if the Qalupalik has shape-shifting abilities, and the Qalupaliks have shape-shifting abilities, and the Kappas are more of a reptilian type of humanoid. So I'm not going to count them as mermaids, but they are very similar. So please, send me all your thoughts and go to all my social medias. Weird Mythic Podcast on Twitter, Weird Mythic Podcast on Instagram. Don't forget to go to my link trees on all of my, media platforms. That way you can check out our new shorts and whatnot. Don't forget to go to Weird Mythic Podcast on YouTube. And I'm really trying to still get into the TikTok world. And it's actually a lot of fun. I'm getting there, guys. But I am just Weird Mythic on TikTok. And again, send me all your personal encounters of cryptids. If you know anything about the Qalupaliks or the Kappas, send me those stories to weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, guys. Bye.